Welcome back to another episode of the Success Times Happiness podcast. I'm your host, Richard Thompson. Today, I am joined by Damien Hicks, Chartered Accountant, Board Director, and CFO of Entag, one of the country's fastest growing IT service businesses. Damien went from picking pine cones in the backyard and dropping out of law to leading a private equity partial buyout, all headquartered here on the Sunshine Coast. In this episode, you'll learn how a modern CFO thinks about AI, growth, and people, and how Damien guards 6 to 8 morning and night for his family. Whether you're scaling a business or raising your young kids, this conversation is for you. All right, let's get into it. Damien Hicks, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Richard Thompson.
You are the CFO of Entag.
Correct.
It's not where you started. Give me some backstory. What was it like growing up as a young Damo?
As a young whippersnapper, I was one of 3 boys, so I'm a middle child. But we had a great life growing up. We moved around a little bit with Dad's work. So
What did he do?
He was a civil engineer, predominantly in mining. So early years, Brisbane, then Tasmania, I think Gladstone. For my older brother, we lived in Mackay for a bit and then settled in Brisbane. I think my childhood just revolves around playing sport. Me and my brothers, whatever it was, whether it was hockey, basketball, swimming, cricket, anything and everything, we just loved doing it. So I think that is just some of the most memorable things I have. You know, we grew up on acreage in Brizzy, so we'd be out all day just playing cricket, wrestling, trampoline, swimming, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So, you know, that was pretty much childhood growing up.
What did you learn from your parents in terms of work ethic?
Oh, they're incredible. Yeah. My mum was one of 15 kids. Yeah. So my nan, Irish Catholic. I'll get this wrong. I think mum's 7th or 8th, maybe 8th out of the 15.
No one actually knows.
Yeah. I don't think she knows. Yeah. But yeah, so they, my nan had her first child at 19 and then 20 years later had her 15th kid.
Okay.
And I think that instilled a lot in my mum. So I got a lot of respect from my mum, you know, Catholic, you know, pretty religious. I'm not necessarily the same, but, you know, her belief and her faith, you know, was something to admire. And it instilled this work ethic in her. I think growing up with so many brothers and sisters, everyone chipped in and was a part of it. So mum, just incredible workhorse. So I remember growing up on acreage, she'd be out there on the ride-on mower, you know, doing it all. And she's still like that today. So, you know, she's run marathons, she's done half marathons and, you know, massive treks across Europe and all that sort of stuff. She's just a real go-getter. And I think that's super influential. And then my dad, he incredibly intelligent guy. He's a workhorse as well. So literally growing up with 2 probably borderline workaholic parents or, you know, people who just get after it. And I think for me, I think they just taught me that, you know, stuff doesn't come easy. You've actually got to get out there and work for it. And, you know, my dad and mum were pretty forceful on that as well. So I remember we were like 8 years old, 9 years old, and growing up, we had to go out and pick up the pine cones in the morning, you know, like on the weekend, just so we can mow the yard. And, you know, it sucked doing it. And as soon as we could, we had to mow the yard. And, you know, we just always had to be involved. And I think it was really, like, we hated it, the 3 of us, the kids at that time, because it was just like, oh, this sucks. This is like, what? You know, I remember grouting tiles. Like dad wouldn't get a tiler to come out, so he'd do the tiling, and then we'd all have to grout it. There's probably holes everywhere or whatever, but, you know, that sort of stuff just probably, you know, made you realize that you do need to work hard to get stuff done. So yeah, that was super influential.
How did your path forge towards accounting?
It's an interesting one. I played a lot of water polo growing up and a lot of swimming, and, you know, absolutely loved it. And initially I was accepted to do human movements at UQ out of high school. So got accepted straight into that. But it was an interesting time in my life. My parents had just divorced and they just separated. And at that time, I didn't see a lot of, you know, future work in human movements. Like most people who were studying that degree when I was going through ended up being a PE teacher. You know, respect to them. But for me, I just felt like, I don't know if that's a career I want to get into. And, you know, I just happened to talk to, super smart guy I went to school with, and he's like, I'm studying law and accounting. So I didn't even know what accounting was, to be honest, when I signed up. I was just followed him and, went and studied law and accounting with him, subsequently dropped out of the law, probably don't have the brains for that like you, Rich, but, so I ended up doing that accounting degree and sort of, Yeah, it took me a little while to wrap my head around it and get into it. But ultimately, I think my passion for business and learning accounting was super foundational for that. And I think as the years have gone on, I probably didn't appreciate the degree and the knowledge set that it equipped you with early on in my career. But, subsequently going through the chartered accounting program after uni and, working at, chartered accounting firms and that sort of stuff, I feel like that foundation has been really integral in my role as a CFO and a business owner today.
As an adult going through your parents separating, how did that impact you?
Yeah, it was pretty tough. It was quite turbulent. Like my dad and my mum, they're really good friends today. And I have a really good relationship with both of them. I think maybe around that age, as a male adolescent, there's puberty, there's you come partying, that drinking age, you're 17 years old, but you think you're bulletproof and 10 foot tall or whatever the saying is. So I think there was a bit of, probably between my dad and I specifically, we probably butted heads a little bit. And, unfortunately there was probably a few years there where we didn't talk at all. So we probably had a pretty sour relationship, but having kids changed that for me. So we sort of, made contact when my first daughter was born. And, I think like a little bit vulnerable, but I think having children made me realize that my dad was just doing the best that he could do as a father. And I think being a father now myself, like that's what you're trying to do. So that was a little bit rocky, but I think it was a huge learning curve for me in my life. And, my dad and I are super good mates now and we talk all the time. So, it was influential in my life, but, better off that they're happy separately as opposed together and, not great together, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. The lessons that, the reality that hits you when you become a father, it changes everything, right?
Everything. Yeah. And I think that was massive learning in my life. I think, prior to kids, you sort of can do anything you want, whenever you want and all that sort of stuff. And, for me, I've always been, quite health conscious and quite career driven. And I think having children became a balance of like, hey, you've now got someone else to take care of, and maybe some of my ambitions and some of the things I want to do need to find a balance. So, heaps of learning on that front with having kids. But I think, it's important, which I strive to do, is find a balance so that you can teach the right things for your kids around working hard and looking after yourself and that sort of stuff.
I was planning on finishing the app with the kids, but we can get into it. So you got 3 kids now.
3, yeah.
Yeah. You are an incredibly busy executive with work, and the rise of Damien Hicks has been properly impressive to see.
Thank you.
Career-wise, but how you show up for your kids is also, I've had the distinct pleasure and opportunity to see how you show up. And for your 3 kids, how have you tackled that?
I'm super fortunate. Where I work is at Entag there. It's a great culture. We pride ourselves on flexibility and balancing work and life. And I, start there because without something like that, I probably wouldn't be able to be, I try to be the best father that I can be. And that's really supported by the place that I work. There's a couple of, for me growing up, I think the flip side of seeing my parents work so hard was there's probably, my father used to work fly in, fly out, so he was sort of, heading up a few mines and he would sort of do like 14-day swings where he would work 12 days and come home for 2 days. So I didn't see a lot of him during some years of my life. And for me, I sort of been able to live on the coast, work on the coast, literally 3 kilometers from home.
Was it a bit of like an anti-hero piece where you're like, I've experienced that and accept that as well, with all respect, he was doing the best he possibly could, but you have this view of, I don't want that for my kids.
Probably a little bit. Yeah. I think that's a really good point. I think, and credit to him. Like he was leaving his family every fortnight, and the life that he set up for us was, could go to a good school, play all the sports that we wanted. He was putting me and my little brother through state representative sport, national representative sport. He was funding all of that. And, for me though, I think times have changed, generations are changed. And I think, for me personally, I just want to be, especially at this young age, my kids are 2, 4 and 6. And the more I can be there at these early days, just help with the foundation and that sort of stuff. I'm pretty passionate about that.
So how do you then balance? Because you are since moving to Entag and since being put into the CFO role, and you're in a heavy leadership role that requires so much attention. You can't, yes, it's flexible. Yes, it's close, but the amount of brain matter that you must use in a week to effectively not only just do your work necessary, both on the tools, but also as a leadership group, but also to progress yourself in terms of your own capabilities and the potential that you have as an executive. How do you balance that with a 2, 4, and 6-year-old when that's congruent with you need to be there as well?
So there's a couple of rules. I sort of have this rule. I've had it since we had kids: 6 a.m. till 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. till 8 p.m. That's my family and kids' time. So, those 2 hours, I don't always get it right, and I don't always get it perfect, but those are the 4 hours a day that, if I can be there for the family, like, I think that's a really good goal for me. So they're sort of my boundaries that I set around that. And then, a bit of credit there on that brain power, I'll take that. But I think I have incredible people around me. The team at Entag, like the team that I work with in the leadership team, amazing people. The team that I look after at Entag, super talented people, and I trust them. So, if I was sitting there thinking I had to hold all the balls and make all the calls, it'd probably be a lot tougher than it is. But I literally have amazing people, that I work with and represent the business. So that really makes it possible. But, for me, it is really those boundaries on those time slots. I've got to be intentional. And, like we have gone through a lot in the business. We had a private equity group do a partial buyout of the business in November last year. And that involved a crazy amount of work. And, like probably wasn't sustainable in the long term, but, I wouldn't give up my 6 till 8 p.m. time slot. I'd go back to the office at 8:30, 9 o'clock at night and do the work that needed to be done. So, what I do realize, it's a chapter in life when the kids are this little, and they won't be this little forever, and things will change. But for right now, I think it's just committing myself to be available for them during those hours.
Talk to me about Kayla.
Kayla, she's an amazing woman. I met Kayla. She slid into my DMs on Facebook in 2012, and yeah, we've been in each other's life ever since then. So yeah, she's a phenomenal mother, but she's so much more than that. She's a business owner. She runs a photography business on the Sunshine Coast. She's a qualified teacher. So she was a teacher right until we moved up to the Sunshine Coast in 2019 when we had our first daughter. And since then, she sort of realized that maybe teaching wasn't where she wanted to go. So she started this photography business, and she's got this immense talent. So she does beautiful photography. And as a mother, she's just incredible. She's raised these 3 beautiful kids. She's so selfless. They're her world, they're our world. So Kayla's pretty special.
You talked about being in seasons. I would have thought, certainly last year when you sort of spoke about it with a bit of nonchalance, but the idea of going all day to work and then holding 6 till 8 with your kids, and then going back to work till 11, 12, 1 a.m. every day to get that partial acquisition and buyout done for months before that. Is there conversations at home to say this is going to suck for a little while, but then it'll be okay? Or how do you get through that? Because like any team at work, you need an incredible team at home, but to understand it, because I think there's a lot of corporate families that perhaps don't communicate well enough of how hard it is. It's just really challenging the capacity at work. Did you have those conversations in the lead up to when you understood it was going to get busy?
It definitely has to be considered, and we speak about it a lot. I think Kayla thinks sometimes it's always busy, but around that time, it's just the communication that, hey, this is a chapter that we're in. How do we support each other? What do you need? What do I need? how do we just stick there to get it done? But we definitely talk about it. I'm definitely not perfect. Proactively, maybe could do a little bit more proactively, but at the same time, we're quite open. This process that we went through, doesn't happen often, and I appreciate how fortunate we were to be involved in something like this. So, being able to relay that to Kayla, who's not necessarily experienced all this before or sort of part of this world, but she understands it, and we rally around each other, and we try to, weekends are weekend time, and how do we balance that sort of stuff? So if there is this immense amount of work and that sort of stuff, how do we still ensure that we've got dedicated family time and all that sort of stuff? So yeah, I'm not sure that really answers it, but
No, I think to be able to intellectually understand that it's a season of time or it's a busy period at work or whatever, you can intellectually conceptualize that, but on the ground and in the coal face, when two kids are sick or one kid's not sleeping, or it's hard. Hey, it's hard.
Yeah, it definitely can be hard. But if I roll right back, right, like what are the important things in life? For me, it's health, it's my family. Work is work. Like, I'm super passionate about work, and I love my work, and super proud of Entag. But ultimately, like, if there's sick kids or anything like that, that's the stuff that's important, right? So, yeah, I think ambition's good, but in terms of if it ever got too much, like, there is reality behind it, like what does truly matter. And I think when you balance that, if you're at a point and you think about it, you can roll back and you go, okay, well, maybe I just need a day, maybe I just need a bit of time here, or like I mentioned, and Entag's full of incredible people. Like, how do I lean on them in the workplace? How do I lean on those around me? So,
hey guys, just popping in quickly to say thank you so much for listening to the podcast. If you're enjoying this episode, it would mean a lot if you take a second to follow the show, leave a like or review, and share it with a friend. That support genuinely helps us grow and keep bringing you more great conversations every single week. All right, let's get back into it. All right, we'll kick things off. Give me a snapshot of what a day in the life of a CFO is.
It varies a lot. I love being in the CFO role because it is so diverse, and what a day-to-day looks like is nearly different every day. There's a little bit of underlying structure that I obviously am involved in when it comes to reporting and financial performance, forecasting, all that sort of stuff. But at the same time, one of the best bits about being a CFO is the strategy. So I love getting involved with sales. I love talking to the team, understanding what's going on. But most importantly, the way I see the CFO role is we've got this really interesting role where we've got so much visibility of the business, whether it's lead indicators and the data we're getting of what our customers need, or reactive data like how do we perform last month or last week financially. And I see my role and what I do daily is try to connect the both of those. So what lead indicators do we have? Customer sentiment, or what technology are people investing in, and all that sort of stuff. How can that impact the overall financial performance of the business? So, my day-to-day might be sitting with the finance team, might be sitting with sales, I'll be sitting at the executive team, understanding what's going on. Monthly we catch up as a board and we go through our overall performance and strategy. So it's super diverse.
Are you trying to predict behavior within the company, or is it more broader than that?
Well, I think there's two elements, right? I think the current state of the business is really just trying to make sure, hey, how are we going? Are we humming? Are we doing the right things for what's going on right now? But the lead indicators or the forecasting is more like, do we have the right makeup of team members? How are we going in this product or service? Like, what does that look like? What does that feel like? Are we seeing customers want more of something than something else? Do they want more IT services, or do they want, more product? And how do we build the business around what our customers need? Because I think from my role, what I'll never lose sight of is that we wouldn't be a business if it wasn't for our customers. So we need to listen to them, ears on the ground, what's going on, what do they need? And then secondly, we're a people business. Like, we're IT services, we're not selling a whole lot of software or anything like that. We need great people. And those people, if they're great people, we look after them well, they look after our customers, the rest will happen. And they're two of the biggest lead indicators for me. As a CFO, you can't, obviously you need to have your financial and your commercial acumen, but you can't be the tail wagging the dog, just saying, last month was a great performance.
Looks good numbers.
Yeah, good numbers, bad numbers. They're the reactive, right? That data's happened. What's happening in the future? And I think, establishing myself as a, strategic financial leader is more about that look ahead, as opposed to just talking about the numbers or the has been, you know what I mean? So pretty passionate about that.
With tech coming, that's obviously what Entag centers around. Your view on AI, is it overhyped, underhyped, or just a bit sort of misunderstood at this stage?
I think that's the $1 trillion question, Rich. There's so much. I think at this stage, we sort of talk in Entag about being leading edge or bleeding edge. Sometimes commercially, if you go bleeding edge, you can overinvest, you can over R&D, and the market's not just there yet. AI right now, where we're seeing it, has its absolute place in optimizing the workforce, especially in white collar work and that sort of stuff. And I think for us, it's here, and it's here to stay. What that looks like in the future and to what level, I don't know. But it's only getting better. It's getting more powerful. But the way we're seeing it in the market is, how do you, with the existing teams that you have, how do you upskill them to leverage AI and essentially do more with the same great people that you've had? And how do you use AI to leverage, the non-value add tasks, etc., and let your great people create value, or, you give them more of an opportunity to do other stuff and invest more into the customer and to your people.
Tech, I guess, promises to its core greater efficiency. But I feel like people feel busier and more distracted than ever. Do you think we've actually do we have that technology? Has it improved our lives, or is it just simply increased our expectations of what can be achieved?
I think it's the latter. I think this ever connectedness and ability to do stuff quickly, I think back historically, maybe 20, 30 years ago, you and I probably aren't jumping on emails late at night.
I'm picking pine cones in the
exactly.
the backyard, waiting for the mower to start.
That's it. And, but now, like, if you don't intentionally turn it off, you're contactable. And the ease at which you can work from anywhere has obviously created this level of connectedness, and possibly even expectations within the workforce. I've got a lot of respect for people who can really segregate between work and turn it off and then head home and, be non-contactable. But I think there's a balance, right? I think those who can balance it with the efficiencies during their day will come out in the wash.
How do you do it on a daily basis? Are you able to disconnect? How do you do it between the 6 to 8s?
Yeah, it's probably something that I'm working on, and have a long way to go. I think that 6 to 8, intentionally try to put it down, put the phone away, etc. But I'm far from perfect with it, so I do struggle to disconnect sometimes, and I think it's just that ability to be contactable and switch it off.
It's almost like, to your point, where unless you forcefully or with intention to opt to disconnect yourself, the expectation is that you are always on, which I think has been over the last 15 years, has been a slow, slippery slide where now, and you see it on social media where they say, oh, sorry, I haven't posted for a couple of weeks. You almost like you're apologizing
for disconnecting.
Yeah. Or in a business sense, I sort of feel like this afternoon, I have to go, I'm doing school run. So I'm effectively, ideally not online between 2:30 and 5. Well, effectively 2:30 till the end of the night. But unless I have an out of office auto response letting everyone know that they're not to expect a reply within 15 minutes, there's that anxiety piece there that sort of sits with you to go, shit, I wonder what's banking up that maybe needs me to action.
Big time. And I think it comes a little bit to the person as well, right? Like, I double-edged sword here is trying to be ambitious and stay on top of stuff and, do the right thing and get all the work done. well, you just have this little thing in the back of your head when you are trying to switch off is, you know, hey, yeah, to your point, what is backing up, and when am I going to find the time to catch up on that? But, you know, rolling back to my comment earlier is, you know, what really matters, you know? So it's just trying to find that
for
balance.
sure. You know, but there is that balance, and there's a balance of being able to try to do it all. And I think it's I think all high performing people flirt on that precipice of how much can I get done whilst still being the best father, husband, child, friend that I can be, whilst progressing, you know, the things that I need to progress. But it's all at a cost. And you go, well, if I was the most attentive father in the entire world, I probably wouldn't work at all, you know, or I wouldn't progress the needle more as I possibly could, because I'm not going to get back to that urgent email until I get back to work the next day, and that client might be pissed off and leave. And
yeah. And I think on that front, I think, you know, you've got limited buckets, and you can only fill those buckets a certain amount, and you have to be understanding of the chapter of life that you're in. You know, you can't be running at 100% in each of your buckets of your life, whether it's family, business, personal health, friends. Something has to give somewhere. And I think, you know, me personally understanding I've got a young family, like my best friends that I've had for 20 plus years, you know, they're just in a back seat right now. You know what I mean? Not in a disrespectful way, anything like that, but it's just a different chapter. It's a different season. So it's about trying to balance that. And it's an ever juggle balance. It's an ever juggling balance, right? So, and I do think the connectivity and the technology that makes you available, especially as you sort of, you know, become a little bit more senior and have those responsibilities, it is a learned skill to disconnect, because it is just so easy to fall into the pattern of being connected
100%.
and responding, and it nearly feels counterintuitive. You know, being someone who's wanted to be the best version of myself is like, oh, I've got to not go back to that person and let that sit there and do it at a later date. So yeah, it's quite an internal monologue to go through and try and balance.
And I think the more and it's one of those things as well, right? Like you go, all right, I'm holding boundaries, right? I'm self-boundaries. I'm going to not do anything after 6 p.m. that night, and I'm going to only open. And then all of a sudden, you benefit from it. Like you might then prioritize exercise because you've got a morning not interrupted by emails, and you're in a really clear headspace. And then all of a sudden you go, I can take on the world. And you get to 8 p.m. that next night, and you're like, I want to drill work for the next 3 hours because I feel all over it. Yeah. And then it just slips away from you again, to then having to calibrate it because you're on the floor in the fetal position at some point. And then you go, all right, I need to, you know, like it's this, I don't know, it's this wheel of just, this perpetual wheel of self-improvement, but the better version you are, the more likely, or the more you feel capable of. Yeah. And so you almost, I feel like you got to not extend yourself, even though you feel like you could. Yeah. To control yourself with the work front. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I just feel like, at least personally, when everything is under control, you don't feel like you're pushing any one of those boundaries, like forcing, biting off more than you can chew. It's a little bit uncomfortable.
Yes, very much so.
You're
just sitting in that, that normal level of
everything's under control. Yeah. For me at least, it means invariably that I'm not pushing my potential because I'm not. I don't know.
It's a really good way to look at it.
But it's a trap because
it is a trap.
Then you go, all right, what else can I take on? Yeah, and then you're back at the fetal position.
It's a lot.
I don't know, man. I don't have an answer. I'm just venting. But what does the next 5 years look like for you and for the business?
Yeah, so
there'll be 7, 9, and 11.
7, 9, and 11. Yeah. At Entag, it's Should I do like a bit of overview about Entag? Yeah. So Entag is it started on the Sunshine Coast, IT services business. We're a managed service provider.
Who's the clientele, and who's the best client? Give me an example of a client.
Yeah, so we look after a vast, like, big cross section of clients.
Back then, in the early days, what would be the perfect client?
Oh, back then in the early days, as probably a mum and dad business, sort of moving up to medium enterprise, the occasional government little bit of work. Today, we're sort of all the way from some of the largest enterprise and government's clients in Australia, right down to 20-person businesses that need IT support. So we've got a pretty diverse offering.
Dealing with their hardware, software, and network.
Yeah. So to give you an example, so our largest customer is Queensland Police. So every frontline police officer out there's about 13,000 of them. They carry around an iPad. That iPad has come through an Entag staging and warehouse facility, and we look after that asset life cycle and that management of that device and the logistics behind it. We roll down. We look after a large law firm in Brisbane. We're essentially their outsourced IT team. So, we look after everything from devices, laptops, mobiles, network connectivity, your calling platforms. We recently acquired a physical security business on the 1st of July last year. So that's an AI-backed platform which has seen some rapid growth. And, we partner with that group, and they've actually been awarded the 2028 LA Olympic Games, and we'll fit out the, we won't be doing that, but they will be fitting out that physical security solution across LA. So that's pretty much the cross-section of Entag. The next 5 years, I'll probably look back 5 years. So the last 5 years at Entag, we've been going through quite some organic growth, but also an inorganic growth strategy. And doing that inorganic growth strategy, we'd always either cash funded or debt funded it. So
roll ups are different.
Yeah. So we'd go and look for businesses with complementary offerings or synergies that we could realise. Great cultural fits that we could bring together. So traditionally, we always did that via just debt funding or cash, which can be a little bit slow and a little bit clunky. You get your debt into the business, you need to meet your banking covenants, you need to perform at a certain level, retire some debt, then you can go again. So we'd sort of done some M&A activity in 2019, 2021, and then last year we did a couple. Sort of at an entity level, we want to be a bit more ambitious and a bit more bullish in what we want to do. We do see, there's a lot of change in technology at the moment. There's also a lot of boomers reaching an age of, wanting to look for succession plans out of their business. So we sort of take that hypothesis and we're looking to, acquire some more IT and like similar businesses to roll up a little bit. So that was, in November last year, we worked with Anchorage Capital Partners, who are a private equity mid-tier firm out of Sydney. Some phenomenal people in there and great operators. So we partnered with them. The reason being is that they can help us deploy an inorganic strategy a little bit quicker than what we would if we were working with a bank or, waiting on cash flow to fund that sort of stuff. So, that sort of background then sets us up for the next 3 to 5 years in terms of what we want to do. So again, we're just running an organic strategy and an inorganic strategy. We've got great people, great offerings, great customer base where organically we can do a lot more with them and support them. And then inorganically, we're working pretty closely with Anchorage, looking at a couple of opportunities across Australia. Hopefully over the next 5 years, we put those together and become one of the leading IT platforms in Australia is our goal. What I'm super proud of.
What's the metric on that? How do we achieve that?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. Revenue growth is clearly one way to look at it. Earnings growth is another one. Total earnings. For me, aspirationally, success looks like a couple of those things, but more importantly is we've done it headquartered from the Sunshine Coast, which I'm super passionate about, and the people who have been with us, from the past 5 years, or you go back 10 years and there was 6 people sitting around a table in Chris Carver's lounge room, making this business what it is. A lot of them are still with us today. So how do we, success is seeing those people and people who have joined us along the journey becoming the best versions of themselves and actually have an opportunity to grow. And some of these guys in the business are some of the leading people in their fields in Australia, and I'm super proud of them. So to see them to continue to grow would be a massive success. So, that's probably the next 3 to 5 years. AI changes everything. Technology changes all the time. So do I know exactly what it looks like? Probably not. But what I do know is that our customers will need support on whatever that journey looks like. And I know that we are able to help them with that and whatever that may be.
Love that. It's a great answer. You talked about having read Jocko Willink's Extreme Ownership book, and you're a man who only consumes self-improvement literature. How has your skills as a leader within the business and within yourself, I guess, how has that evolved over the last few years?
Massively. I think my journey into leadership, was a little bit of baptism by fire, which I absolutely love. But I think some of the literature that you read, you take little bits from every book that you read, and you sort of, implement it in whatever way that you can. I'd say my leadership has changed dramatically in the sense that initially in leadership, I probably didn't have a good coach or a good guide, and I probably just felt like I had to prove myself a little bit. So, probably a little bit keeping the cards close and that kind of leader. But over the last 7 years, for me, it's all about the people around me. The more I'm doing, the less I'm leading. So essentially, if I've got the right people around me, give them the right challenges, give them the right support, give them the right framework, they flourish, So for me, leadership is getting the best out of other people. Additionally, my leadership journey is I just throw myself at challenges. So sitting on this podcast today, 7 years ago, I would have told you to go shove it up your proverbial. 'Cause I just hated public speaking, and I don't know if it came from lack of doing it or maybe just lack of self-confidence. But I think being a leader, I've just had to understand I am who I am, warts and all. And, if I can just authentically be myself, if that's enough, it's enough. If it's not enough, that's okay. I'm just being myself.
Yeah.
So I actually take this, even sitting here today, as a huge opportunity to just get a little bit uncomfortable, have a bit of a conversation, and do that. So I think leadership is just this ever growing journey. And I look forward to hopefully becoming an even better leader over the next 5 years.
I think the authenticity is huge, right? Like they sort of talk about it's like dating. And if you, on the first date, are pretending to be someone you're not, and the person falls for you, then you got two issues. You got one, you got to pretend to be that person forever, which is exhausting. And why would you want to do that? Or B, that the person is only interested in you because of that facade. So would you rather not just be who you are? And if that person is interested or not, great. If they're not, that's okay.
I couldn't agree more.
Saved yourself X amount of period of time wasting on trying to be someone who you're not.
I couldn't agree more. I love interviewing people and bringing people into work, and I actually tell them what's wrong at Entag. I find so often people try to your point, put on this beautiful facade and everything's all good. But if you just tell someone, warts and all, this is the good, this is the bad. It's up to you. But you don't want to create this veil of perfectionism or whatever, and then it slowly comes undone, and then it's.
But I think that's society, right? In terms of trying them, and all social media and all the platforms where we aren't necessarily encouraged to accept or celebrate our flaws or the things that are wrong, or the ordinary, or the authenticness. It's almost like a fake authenticness being rewarded. But I think there's a huge element of leadership, as you said, just to be you.
I agree. I think like some of the people I admire the most in leadership positions, it's not because they're the most polished or because they're the smartest person in in the room. They're just themselves, and they call it how they see it. They're unapologetically themselves. They make a decision, and they make a decision. Either it's wrong and they pivot, or it's right and we get on with it. I love reading books about leadership and learning leadership, and I think it's just this perpetual journey.
Yeah, I love it. Mate, you've done well. For someone who didn't want to be on this show, I appreciate your acceptance, and you've passed with flying colours. So
thank you. It's been good.
Yeah. Before you go, fast 5 questions. What does success mean to you, Damien Hicks?
Success for me it's two-tiered, being the best version of myself, whatever that may be. And then leaving other people more positively after an interaction with them or being involved in their life. I'd like to bring that to people as well and help them be their best versions.
What does happiness mean to you?
I think health is number one. And happiness is literally, my family of 5, like just being together.
Love that. If there was a piece of advice you'd give to the world with everything what would be that one piece of advice?
There's 2, sorry,
That's
Rich,
okay.
but
we're making a book of all of the guests' piece of advice, so it's
cool.
like your Bible.
That's awesome. That's a great idea.
So what's your 2?
So one of them, which was instilled in me from a mentor super early on, is just keep showing up. There's a lot of merit in showing up. You might not win every day, but the more you show up, you're probably going to outlast and you're going to learn. Love it. And then the second one, which I love saying to my kids, is you're either winning or you're learning. There's no losing. So, yeah.
Love that. Fourth question, what does your normal morning routine look like?
It's a bit broken at the moment with young kids. My 2-year-old boys never slept through the night. So it's a bit tough at the moment. It normally involves either Kayla or I getting up super early. We normally take that in turns. Harry wakes anywhere in the 4s to early 5s, and then someone deals with him, and then just family. We would just have breakfast and then chuff off to school and work. So it's nothing too exciting. Traditionally, historically, pre-kids, it was pretty much activity in the morning, whether it's running or gym, and that's my goal one day to be able to have time to be able to build that back in. Hopefully, when Harry sleeps.
Just a season, man.
Just a season, yeah.
He'll kick it.
Yeah, hopefully.
At some point.
One day, yeah.
And finally, someone that who you think would be a good guest for the show?
I think for me, funnily, similar area of work for you, Rich, Luke Mountford. He's the managing partner at a law firm in Brisbane called Hopgood Gannam Lawyers. He is just one of, for how intellectual he is, he's just one of the nicest, most pragmatic, approachable, great people I think I've ever met. And I've got a lot of admiration for what he's, from where he's been to what he's now doing at Hopgood Gannam Lawyers.
Beautiful. We'll get him in.
I'll try.
Thanks, Damo.
Thanks, Rich.
That was another episode of the Success Times Happiness podcast. Next time you're out picking up pine cones before you're allowed to mow the yard, turn to the person next to you and tell them all about the show. It really means a lot. Huge thanks to Damo for sharing his story with such honesty, especially the parts on fatherhood, marriage, and the seasons that make it hard. If today's conversation inspired you, please subscribe, leave a comment, or share it with someone who needs to hear it. It really means a lot. Until next time, peace.